Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing fabulous, thank you very much. And we're going on to part 3 of our story tonight, and we've learnt about Jackie's devastation at losing her daughter Lily, who was only 3 years old, in a drowning accident. And we learnt that she was chasing after a dragonfly, which she believed was a fairy, lost her balance and fell into the swimming pool because Jackie went to see a psychic medium, and that was what the psychic medium informed her about. She was very reluctant to go to this medium, but in the end she decided to go, and it appears that the medium, reassuring her about her daughter being absolutely fine on the other side and reassuring her that, she was meant to go when she did, that has given Jackie a little bit more perspective. It's helped her to feel more upbeat in her life. But again, it's a work in progress for her. So let's see where the story is going to take us. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. And let's continue with part 3 of our story. One day while Bernie was at work, Jackie was pottering around very casually in the kitchen, cleaning the surfaces like she did every day like clockwork. It had become almost like a ritualistic routine for her, while she was on her way back to wellness. Jackie spent a lot of her time cleaning. It helped her soak up the residues of her lugubrious melancholia like a sponge, for keeping busy is always a good idea when you've been down in the dumps for a very long time and need to pick yourself up. For Jackie, doing the household chores seemed to almost calm her down, and served to while away the long lonely hours while Bernie was away at work. But after having visited the psychic medium, Jackie now felt as if she had permission from her own daughter Lily to try and be happy again for her daughter's sake. So these days Jackie was striving to have a much more upbeat, optimistic attitude towards things, so that invariably when Bernie returned home from work, he would not be greeted by the usual despondent, downhearted wife. So Jackie was trying to make efforts in all areas of her life to overcome all her emotional challenges, to become more sanguine and cheery. Bernie's words echoed in her mind. "Maybe if you are sad, love, you are probably holding our Lily back in the afterlife. For if you refuse to let her go, then she's never going to become all she can be." Jackie was now determined to find her way through the foggy mire that had suffocated her. She realized that going to the medium had been liberating, for it had unleashed the burden of her guilt that had weighed her down, rather like a backpack containing concrete blocks. It would seem that learning about Lily's death and realizing it was preordained had released the stronghold of despair, which had snapped rather like an elastic band, especially when the medium had assured her that one day Jackie and her little girl would be reunited again. Jackie finally felt as if she could breathe. After Lily's death, Jackie had been tempted to drink to excess, but when she'd started knocking back the alcohol, the red wine she had drunk so liberally had brought on the most unbearable migraine headaches, only serving to exacerbate rather than soothe her misery. In some way those headaches had saved her from going down a precariously slippery slope that can so easily lead to alcoholic addiction. So she did have to be grateful for small mercies, for she hadn't touched a drop since. She had thought, of course, long and hard about what the medium had said to her, that she was going to have another child again, a little girl. But Jackie didn't want another child to replace little Lily. For her it felt like betrayal in some way. Loving another child after having lost Lily to such a tragic accident seemed almost incomprehensible. The medium might have been right about many things, but she had got her wires twisted believing Jackie would have another girl very soon. If it did happen one day, it was a long way in the future, she thought. It was on this magnificently beautiful, unassuming day, when the sunlight twinkled mischievously through the kitchen window, casting its soft shadows all over the kitchen floor, so the room was bathed in a very flattering ethereal light. It made the day seem as close to perfect as you could possibly get. Jackie's 2 beloved bulldogs were lying their legs stretched out on the kitchen floor, They were lapping up the sun appreciatively, like a couple of slightly chubby salamanders. The day seemed almost cruel in its beauty, for it was like the day when Jackie had lost little Lily, and there were some things Jackie did not want to remember. As beautiful days such as this were sometimes tinged with the indelible fabric of the past that haunted Jackie on a daily basis, but she no longer wanted to go to that dark place ever again, for it had dragged her down and served no earthly purpose at all, other than to make her all the more miserable. The swimming pool this morning was turquoise in its resplendence. It sparkled like an opaque jewel in the morning light. Jackie had not been able to fill it in, for she loved swimming so much, and it would have been a pity to destroy the swimming pool, just because of a tragic accident, as filling it in would never bring Lily back. So what was the point anyway? "Right," said Jackie in a determined voice, as she looked down fondly at the family's 2 bulldogs. "We're going to go for a walk. Walkies!" It was the first time in a long time that Jackie had ever contemplated going for a walk like this. Her 2 bulldogs lifted up their heads rather doubtfully. They appeared somewhat bewildered and bemused, wondering possibly if they'd heard right. Their ears twitched, and their reticently reserved tails appeared to wiggle ever so slightly. The dogs knew very well from past experience that the only one in the Peterson household over the last year that had used the word walkies on them was Bernie, as Lily had pretty much lived the life of a hermit, after Lily's tragic passing, that is, but it was like she was pushing through the cocoon of her despair and breaking free from those boundaries. The bulldogs looked at Jackie rather suspiciously, as if her saying walkies was some cruel, twisted joke on her part that could not be trusted. But when she headed towards the entrance hall and replaced the slippers she was wearing with the walking shoes and socks she'd left out, the bulldogs began to charge ebulliently out of the kitchen towards the front door, like an uncontrolled cyclone. Their tails began to wag effusively. Not that they had much of a tail, of course. They must have thought they'd died and gone to heaven, as Jackie was taking them for a walk, and she hadn't even attempted a casual stroll outside the front door for a whole year now. As Jackie sashayed out of the house, the heaviness that had anchored her to the mooring spot for so long, like a donkey tethered to its stable, seemed to suddenly dissipate. She felt so much lighter than she'd done for a very long time. Jackie chuckled to herself as she watched her 2 slightly tubby bulldogs happily charging towards the woods. She couldn't help but smile at their unbridled enthusiasm, and she realized in that quintessential, very special moment that she hadn't smiled for a very long time. Things were looking up for her. It was magnificent walking in the woods, and Jackie could only wonder why in her deepest moments of despair and sadness, when she'd locked herself away in the house, like a woman on house arrest, and had laid in bed for hours on end, curled up in a fetal position, why she hadn't forced herself to take a hearty walk in the woods, for it would have been like medicine for her. Bernie had encouraged her often enough, of course, telling her that a bit of fresh air and exercise would do her the world of good. But Jackie had shunned his salient advice in favour of doing absolutely nothing, which meant that every day had dragged on, like a life sentence, which had no end. There was something so soulfully rewarding about walking through some of these ancient trees, as their hefty tongues forcefully anchored themselves to the ground, spreading out their burgeoning roots unapologetically through the soil. It would seem their stoic reassurance helped Jackie to suddenly feel so much more grounded, so much more safe and secure. There was something so magical about all these trees, and this morning, as her walking boots crunched the twigs and leaf litter beneath her feet, she suddenly became so energized, as if the sweet perfumes of nature had lifted her spirits exponentially, rather like a life-giving tonic. The branches of the trees began to bob up and down in the breeze, and in their whispering, Jackie was sure they were saying, "All is well, all is well." Had she imagined that, she wondered? But it really was as if the trees were talking to her in their serenity, and they were offering her the serene comfort only nature can so generously provide. Jackie realized how incredibly unfit she was. She hadn't taken any exercise for an entire year, and for years she had been doing hundreds of laps in the swimming pool to keep herself fit. But these days she had become all but a shadow of her former self. Her heartbeat quickened as she increased her pace energetically, as she started to take strides down the long, rather curvy woodland trails. She watched her 2 bulldogs barking excitedly as they began to scramble rather clumsily after a nimble rabbit, who made a quick dart towards his burrow and was gone from their sight. Her bulldogs refused to give up. Huffing and puffing, they ran towards the burrow. They began to bark excitedly, while they dug rather aimlessly around the burrow with their chunky paws, in the faint hope that the rabbit might re-emerge. Jackie laughed. "You're not going to get the rabbit back, Poppy," she teased. "The rabbit is gone. There's no chance of that." It was while the bulldogs were frantically digging around the rabbit's burrow that she saw him. She was convinced it had to be a trick of the light. It had to be. Was she deceiving herself, she wondered? It had happened so very quickly. He was there for a brief second, and then gone. And like the trees that had whispered, "All is well," she was sure the creature was saying the very same. Into her head, of course, in some kind of telepathic exchange. "All is well. All is well." One thing was for sure. She wasn't going to tell Bernie about this bizarre incident, because he wouldn't believe a word of it. Jackie was sure, though, that she'd seen a strapping Bigfoot, and that the creature had been staring at her very briefly, through very dark, soulful eyes, and then he'd just glided away, just like that, as if he'd never been there at all. Jackie knew she'd seen a Bigfoot. She was well versed in the subject that had been discussed on many occasions over the dinner table as a girl, where her father ridiculed the very suggestion that such a creature like Bigfoot could actually exist, describing the very possibility as absolute nonsense. Jackie's brother Wayne, however, did not agree, nor did he share his father's scepticism on the matter. He was fascinated by the subject of Bigfoot, and had gone on multiple excursions and intrepid adventures all over America in hot pursuit of the elusive creature. Jackie had found it irresistible to tease her brother rather mercilessly for his naivety in believing in the existence of Bigfoot. She had chuckled. "Are you kidding me, Wayne? Those creatures only exist in your imagination. They're a fictitious pipe dream." But in that brief second, everything had changed, while Jackie had walked the dogs in the woodgrove, for she was certain she had just encountered a Bigfoot, and furthermore she was absolutely sure he had said to her rather telepathically, just like the trees had done, "All will be well." Yet if he was real, why had the bulldogs not picked up on his scent at once? Why were they relentlessly trying to get to the rabbit in the burrow? Why did they remain completely oblivious to the Bigfoot's presence? And why did they not even notice he was there, and then he wasn't? Jackie wondered if in her grief that she was now seeing things, hallucinating perhaps. The rest of the walk was extremely pleasant, but Jackie sadly saw no more sightings of the curious creature, which made her feel a tad disappointed. He had been so Herculean in size, covered in long flowing dark hair, the colour of charcoal. He had had such a human-like face, and whose soulful eyes had been expressive and kind. "You imagined what you saw," she told herself very firmly. "You'll never live this down if you admit to your brother Wayne that Bigfoots might possibly be real after all." Little did she know that that afternoon was going to bring many more surprises that would spin her world around abruptly on its axis in a very positive, reassuring way, a way she never saw coming. It all began later that afternoon, when Jackie was trying to draw a picture of the Bigfoot she was sure she'd seen in the woods. She was quite the artist, and had not used her watercolour pencils for a very long time. All of a sudden she heard a car rolling up the driveway, and she walked over to the window, her heart sinking, when she recognised the rather rusty Volvo, parked in the driveway. It belonged to 16-year-old Kirsty, who would be 17 by now, of course. What did Kirsty want? She had not seen that annoying young girl for over a year now, and she had hoped that she'd never run into the likes of her ever again. as one way or another, Kirsty had blood on her hands, for she had failed to watch over Lily for her on that fateful day when Jackie's life had almost imploded. If Kirsty had the audacity to ask for her cleaning job back, she could think again, because that was not going to ever happen. Jackie wondered if she should hide in the house, perhaps, and avoid answering the door to Kirsty. But then she realised that sometimes it was best to face your demons head-on. She could tell Kirsty to bog off, of course, and to leave her well alone. And hopefully the thick-skinned 17-year-old would finally get the message. What an absolute cheek, coming over to the house after everything that had happened with Lily. That young teenager had quite the nerve on her. Either that or the impenetrable hide of a rhinoceros. Jackie could hear the familiar click-clock of Kirsty's platform heels. Some things never changed. That girl always wore platform heels, even when she was cleaning the house. The doorbell rang, and there was a rapping sound on the door, as if Kirsty was absolutely determined to get her attention, and probably knew very well that Jackie had been hiding in the house for a very long time. Word around town was that she had become a hermit. People had whispered behind closed curtains things about Jackie that they didn't say out in the open. Poor thing! I think the woman's melancholia is going to kill her. It's that husband I feel very sorry for. He has to put up with his wife squirreling herself away in the house, as if she's gone into permanent hibernation. That's no way for anybody to live, is it? I know she lost a child in a tragedy like that, and it's desperately sad, but life does go on, does it not? Jackie meandered rather cautiously to the front door, and as she expected, there was Kirsty standing in the doorway, just like old times. But there was something profoundly different about Kirsty's demeanour. She looked like a 17-year-old girl going on 40. But then tragedy can do that to a human being, and no doubt Kirsty had been burdened by so much of the guilt of failing to watch over little Lily in her charge, and it probably had eaten away at her, for it was very clear that there were dark circles under her eyes that appeared puffy, and her skinny knees were very pronounced under the cotton sundress that she was wearing. She'd certainly lost a lot of weight. Kirsty looked gaunt, and there was definitely melancholia in her eyes that lacked the spirit they had once possessed. "Jackie, please may I come in? It's very important," she asked. "I'm not sure that's a good idea, Kirsty. Frankly, I'm really surprised you've got the audacity to come back here, after everything that happened with Lily. You've got a bloody cheek. Didn't I say I never wanted to see you again?" "Look, Jackie, I know that Lily isn't coming back, and I'm so sorry about what happened that day when she died. I really am." "You're sorry? Is that all you can say, Kirsty? That's rich coming from you. I asked you to do one thing, didn't I? Watch over my little girl for a few minutes, and you couldn't do that, could you? You were more interested in your fancy man. I wonder, are you still seeing Ryan?" "Yes, we're together," said Kirsty. "I'm not as fickle as you think, Jackie. Ryan's been good for me. He's helped me through some very dark times emotionally. It's been tough for me, Jackie." "Well, I'm glad to hear that you're happy." "Happy? Do I look like I'm happy, Jackie? I'm anything but happy. Every single day I'm haunted by what happened to little Lily. I loved her too, you know. You're right. I failed in watching over Lily from the kitchen window, and I'm sorry for what happened. But you're not entirely without blame either, Jackie." Jackie raised a brow. "And what's that supposed to mean, Kirsty?" "I'm just saying, Jackie, that Lily's death was a tragic accident. That's what it was, an accident. Yes, I failed to watch over her for you from the kitchen window, but you also failed in your responsibilities, didn't you? You failed to close the gate to the swimming pool. You thought you had, but that still didn't mean you did it? You failed to close it. But things like that happen, Jackie. It was a terrible, terrible accident. And a day doesn't go by when I don't grieve little Lily's passing. She was a beautiful 3-year-old girl, and I'll never, ever forget her." Jackie glared at Kirsty. "What are you doing here, Kirsty? That's what I want to know. Did you come here to add salt to my wounds? Remind me of my grievous loss? Or did you come here to ask for your cleaning job back? Because if the latter is true, that is not going to happen. I don't want a cleaning job, Jackie. I'm here to talk about something that may be of interest to you. Are you going to let me in or not? Or do I need to stand here all day? Why can't you tell me what it is you want, Kirsty, here and now? I'd rather talk about it indoors, if I may. A cup of coffee would be very nice, Jackie. And you do make a good cup of coffee. You've got a bloody cheek, Kirsty, coming here like a fox in the chicken coop to stir up trouble. On the contrary, Jackie, what I have to tell you might help ease some of your pain. Over losing your daughter, that is. At least I hope it will. Nothing is going to do that for me, Kirsty. And if you think that, you're being extremely optimistic and very much in denial. You must be very delusional. Your coming here is bringing those horrifying memories back to me. But you may as well come in, because I can see you're determined to do so, said Jackie rather reluctantly, opening the door to allow Kirsty into the house. Kirsty followed Jackie straight to the kitchen. So what is this all about, Kirsty? Asked Jackie, turning around to face her head on. Are you going to make that coffee or not? Kirsty asked Jackie. I'm very parched, Jackie, and I don't want to talk to you until I've had something to drink. You've got a nerve coming here, Kirsty. I'll give you that, said Jackie, strutting over to the kettle and preparing some coffee for Kirsty. It's black, am I right, with no sugar? You remembered. I'm impressed. That's the problem, Kirsty. I remember far too much. Jackie brought the coffee over to the table and sat down opposite Kirsty. So what is it you want to talk about, Kirsty? I wouldn't think we had much to say to each other any more. But go on anyway. Kirsty gingerly took a sip of the steaming coffee, and with both hands she cradled the mug so tightly that Jackie observed her knuckles were almost white. It was clear that Kirsty was no more comfortable being in her presence than Jackie was in Kirsty's presence. What on earth could this young lady possibly want, Jackie wondered. As if answering Jackie's internal dialogue, Kirsty finally burst out. Jackie, I'm here because I have a cousin called Crystal. She's only 20 years old. She's sitting in my Volvo right now, in the passenger seat with her daughter on her lap. I told her to stay put in the car until I go out the front door and wave at her, to tell her to come in and meet you herself. She's got a 3-year-old daughter with her in the car, who's the splitting image of little Lily in every way. She gave birth to Amelia at a very young age. Her parents both begged her to have an abortion, because they knew that having a baby at this time in her life was a big mistake. But the trouble is, Crystal refused. As much like me, ethically she's very against that sort of thing. The child's name is Amelia. She's the sweetest little thing you have ever beheld. You'll love her. Everybody does. She's adorable. Oh, how perfectly lovely. So you're telling me about a child that looks just like my Lily. You really think I want to hear that? Are you completely insane? What on earth is going on with you, Kirsty? Do you really want to prolong my anguish? Rub salt in the wound so it stings all the more, by reminding me of my losses? Is this some kind of sick, warped joke of yours? Because if it is, I'm not laughing. You thought bringing a child here that might remind me of my little girl would make me a happy bunny, did you? I don't know what is going on in your head, Kirsty. I really don't. It's not like that, Jackie. You misunderstand me. I'd never ever want to hurt you. That's the last thing I'd want to do. I want to make up for your loss in any way I can. I want to help you, Jackie. I want to make a difference in your life if that's at all possible. I'm not the monster you're painting me out to be. I know I played a part in Lily's death, and I do blame myself for what happened. But you haven't been out of my thoughts for a single minute, and I really want to make it better for you, Jackie, if I can. I think it's a bit late for that, Kirsty. How can you possibly make anything better for me? There is nothing you can do to take away my pain. And I do think your coming here was a very bad idea. Jackie, you're getting the wrong end of the stick because you haven't let me finish yet. I wish you would listen to what I'm saying. My cousin Crystal loves her 3-year-old daughter Amelia very much, but she's not in a position to be a mother or a good mother to her daughter. She wants to travel the world, you see. She wants to do something very productive with her life, get a degree or something at university. She's not ready to settle down yet, far from it, in fact. I told her all about you, and about your dreadful loss, and how her child, well, is the doppelganger for the one you've lost. She wants to put her child up for adoption, you see, and give it a great home with someone. She was wondering, after everything I've been telling her about you, if you would be interested in adopting her little girl, legally, of course. I remember you saying very clearly how it was a desperate struggle for you to fall pregnant with Lily in the first place. And this little girl needs a mother. You would be perfect for her, Jackie, absolutely perfect, and I know she would love you. I really do. Are you telling me that this woman called Crystal wants to give up her own daughter? Is she insane? What kind of a mother does that? No, she's not insane. She's the most down-to-earth, practical person you've ever met, Jackie. She loves her little daughter, but she doesn't believe she can give her daughter the life her daughter deserves, not at the moment anyway. She's not ready to commit to being a mother yet. She's still too young for that. She wants to do that when she's in her 30s like you are. So this Crystal wants me to adopt her daughter? Asked Jackie, looking bemused. I don't think so, Kirsty. It's a nice thought of yours, though. Thank you for considering me. But I'm sorry no child can replace my Lily. That's not the point, Jackie. I'm not suggesting for a single second that any child on this earth could ever replace your Lily. That would be impossible, and I realise that, of course. But this little girl can bring so much fullness to your life. Kids do that, you know. I remember you told me, Jackie, specifically that you wanted more children, and you were worried you might not get pregnant again. You said you would consider adoption. And I did think it would be a good solution for you in the circumstances. I think you should meet little Amelia before you make any decisions. Rash decisions, I mean. Jackie didn't have time to protest, as Kirsty had run to the front door and was waving madly at the occupant in the Volvo. Jackie was standing in the kitchen, feeling somewhat bemused. She watched the Volvo door swing open, and a young lady holding the hand of the cutest 3-year-old girl that Jackie had ever seen, apart from Lily, of course. The girl was holding a fluffy pink teddy bear in her arms, clutching it in the way that Lily would have done. Then before Jackie could find any words, the little girl was standing in the kitchen next to her mother Crystal, and Jackie's mouth just dropped open, for the little girl looked exactly like Lily. It almost tore at her heart. She wanted to rush towards the child and envelop her lovingly in her arms, but she didn't feel it would be an appropriate thing for her to do. The little girl was looking up at Jackie with very wide, curious eyes. Jackie, this is my cousin Crystal, said Kirsty, eagerly making the introductions. This is her little girl, Amelia. Amelia's 3 years old, as I was telling you. Hello, said little Amelia, rather shyly, putting a finger in her mouth. Hello, Amelia, said Jackie. So how old are you? I'm 3 years old, she said shyly, sticking up 3 fingers to show Jackie. At that moment Jackie had fallen, hook, line and sinker for this little girl, not just because she reminded her of her daughter Lily, but because she was the sweetest thing Jackie had ever laid eyes on. So refusing to adopt this beautiful little girl would be like missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime that had opened up for Jackie like a lotus flower. It was decided that little Amelia would live with Jackie and Bernie for a month, and if they felt that the child fitted in with their lives, they would be able to adopt her. But after 3 days, both Jackie and her husband Bernie had fallen hard for little Amelia, and they couldn't imagine living without her, for she fit into their lives as perfectly as a glove, and it felt as if she'd always belonged. The Petersons were eager to get these adoption papers signed as quickly as possible, and Bernie was extremely grateful to Crystal, because Crystal had given them a gift that you can't put any price on. So in his appreciation, he wrote her a hefty cheque, so she could embark on her worldwide trip, which she did very gratefully. It would seem Crystal now kept sending the family postcards from all over the world. It was agreed that Amelia's mother would remain an intrinsic part of their lives and could visit Amelia whenever she liked. But before long, Amelia was calling Jackie Mummy, and Jackie felt like the heaviness of the dark cloud that had weighed down heavily on her heart had finally lifted once and for all. Before long she was regularly seen around town with her little girl, and the Jackie that had lost her will to live had come back to life again and been revived, and it was all because of a 3-year-old girl called Amelia, whose presence had made the loss of losing little Lily a little bit more bearable. Jackie reflected on the medium that she had visited, that had lived in that twee whitewashed house, and she realized that everything the medium had told her had come true, because yes, indeed, a little girl had come into her life, but in a very unorthodox way. Bernie loved little Amelia as if she was their very own. Jackie taught little Amelia never to go near their swimming pool. She drummed it into her little girl, so much so that Amelia knew to keep away from the water. Jackie made sure that the swimming pool was out of bounds and covered all year long, and that the gates around the pool were double-bolted, for she was absolutely determined that no accident could befall little Amelia, and she would only make the swimming pool accessible to the girl when she was sure she was a strong swimmer. Jackie wasn't prepared to take any risks the second time around. So there we are. That is the end of part 3 of our story. Part 4 is tomorrow night, and I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.